So I remember when I first got into manifesting and law of assumption, I was really concerned about my negative thoughts. I really only wanted to think positive thoughts. I felt like it was my responsibility, that it was my duty, that if I wanted to manifest, I had to force my brain, I had to contort my brain to only think positive thoughts, only think thoughts that fully reflected the wish fulfilled, and that I could not think any negative thoughts. And so I was very concerned about this. And I am saying this because now, after all these years of manifesting, learning so much and becoming a manifestation coach, I see how damaging, truly damaging, that assumption was that I first had. That assumption that said, I need to only think positive thoughts, my brain needs to be a positive thoughts only land. That was a really damaging belief to take on. It caused me suffering. It made my intrusive negative thoughts worse. It made the old story come back even stronger. So that is not the right approach to take, obviously. So now that I'm a manifestation coach, I get this question all the time, this question that's similar to what I was first asking when I came into this. How do I stop my negative thoughts? How do I stop thinking about the old story? And now I see that that is completely the wrong question to be asking. That is not even at all the way that we should be relating to our negative thoughts. It's not the right question at all. So today we're gonna get into this because it's very important, and I really want to free any of you who are still overly policing their brains, overly worrying about negative thoughts, overly concerned about intrusive thoughts. You guys, we're gonna clear this up for you so that you finally just have some relief and start manifesting in a healthier way and just get this going in a good direction. So we're gonna get into that today. Before we get deeper into it, I will introduce myself to any of you who maybe you don't know me yet. My name is Genevieve and I am a manifestation coach. And I am the kind of coach that I really strive to help you see things clearly, help you to manifest in a really healthy way, and also help you to understand the nuances, because manifestation itself is extremely simple. For those of you who have been around for a while, you know the way you manifest is you get into the inner knowing that you already have it, and then boom, it manifests in the external reality. So it's really that simple, but there's so many nuances and just interesting things that can happen to people along the journey of manifesting. And so I try to talk about that stuff here and kind of clear up questions for you guys. So if you like my style of coaching, if you like what I'm saying here, you can work with me in all different ways. There's lots of different things to do in the description below. You can do courses. I've got 3 courses available at the moment. You can do a one-on-one session with me if you really need some help and some perspective and some guidance on your specific life and situation. You can also join the membership portion of this channel where there's extra videos and there's perks that you can talk to me personally and get personal answers in your email and stuff. So anyway, check all that out. And now let's get into this very important topic. So as I said earlier, asking this question of how do I stop my old story from coming up, or how do I stop my thoughts from being negative? That is completely the wrong question, because the quick answer to that question is you are not going to stop the thoughts. You are not going to stop intrusive thoughts from coming up. You're not going to stop the old story from continuing to try to get your attention. It's just not going to stop. That's not the way your brain works. Your brain, you have trained your brain over years and years. You have trained your brain to take certain things seriously. And for a lot of you, especially when it comes to manifesting really important things like love and relationships and health and money and your self-esteem and all that, you have years and years of experience of training your brain that certain thoughts that you have, negative thoughts, are actually quite important. So to give you an example, let's just go with like self-concept. So let's say that for most of your life, you have told your brain, when I think that I'm rejected, that's a big deal, and that's important to pay attention. If I'm thinking that I'm being rejected, that is important. That needs to be paid attention to, because being rejected is a very real thing. So whenever I have thoughts that maybe I'm being rejected, I train my brain to take that thought seriously. So you have years of experience of that, years of thinking thoughts like I'm rejected, nobody loves me, blah, blah, blah. And now you're learning how to manifest. And those thoughts that say I'm not loved, nobody chooses me, I'm always rejected, they are not going to turn off like that. Your brain, again, has been trained. It's like having a dog that is like, it's like a 10-year-old dog, let's say, and for most of its life, you always gave it a treat when it did something. When it sat down, you always gave it a treat. Well, let's say now after 10 years, you're learning a completely new way of being. You want to train this dog in a completely different way. And the way you're training it now is the dog sits, but you are not going to give the dog a treat. The dog is going to be confused. The dog is going to keep trying tactics to get you to do the old way of interacting with it, because that's how you originally trained it, is that, this thing, when it sits, it gets this reward. So your brain, it thinks this thought, and it gets this reaction out of you. Like, that's the training that you have had with your brain. So it's not going to turn off all at once just because now you've decided that you want to consciously manifest and you'd like to focus on that, yeah, I'm going to easily accept now that I'm always chosen. I'm going to easily accept now that I am always loved, that I am always getting the dates that I want to get, or the people that I love always love me back. Like, I'm going to focus on that now. This old stuff is, your brain is like, well, I don't know what to do with this. This is what you trained me on. So I'm going to keep giving this to you, and maybe we can go back to the way it was, because the way it was is what I'm used to. So I hope this makes sense in like a general way, why you are not going to stop these thoughts from coming up. Your brain, it thinks that it's helping you by continuing to remind you, hey, this was an important thing that you used to always think about like your whole life. Do you want to think about it today? Because you used to always think about it. And so your brain thinks it's helping you by being like, here you go, here's some stuff for you to look at because you used to really like this stuff, or at least you took it very seriously. That is not going to go away overnight. And what is also fascinating about intrusive thoughts, or thoughts about the old story or whatever that are invading your brain when you don't want them to, what's fascinating about those thoughts is that they will keep going based on any emotional reaction that you give it. So this is what I mean when I said in the beginning of this video that I used to think, okay, I have to fight off my negative thoughts. I cannot allow any negative thoughts in my head. I've got to be, fully in the wish fulfilled, positive vibes only. But I was in total resistance to the negative thoughts, so that if any thoughts of the old story came up, I would instantly be giving those thoughts a reaction that's like, oh, no, that can't be true. No, that can't be here. Oh, maybe because that thought just came up, that means that this isn't working. Any kind of emotional reaction the thoughts get from you, it is going to feed the thoughts. That to your brain says, yep, this is still important. She's still reacting as if this is important, because every time we think this thought about rejection, she's reacting to it as if this is a very important thing to pay attention to. So I hope you're following what I'm saying. Like, you cannot be in resistance to those negative thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, because that is just you giving them your attention. It's you giving them credibility by giving them an emotional reaction and then trying to fix them. Because that's also the thing. Anytime that you're trying to fix something or figure something out, you are engaging with it. You are saying, yes, this is real. Yes, this is my reality. If I'm trying to fix it or figure it out or engage with it in any way, resistance is attention. I know it is resistance to be thinking something and then thinking, oh, this is bad, resist it. But resistance is a form of intention. It's a form of engagement. And the goal here, as you can probably see where we're going, is to completely disengage from the intrusive or negative thoughts, or any thought that is just one that you don't really want to feel in that moment. If the thought comes up that says nothing good ever happens to you, your job is to simply be like, okay, that was a weird thought, moving on to the next thought. That's how we actually get away from those thoughts. We don't stop the thoughts. We just kind of acknowledge like, okay, that was weird, keep moving. Because that's what you do with the majority of your other junk mail thoughts that just come into your mind randomly. You just kind of naturally don't give them your emotional attention, and you just move on to like, all right, next, let's just move on. That was an interesting thought. Because it is not your thoughts on their own that manifest. As you know, you've got like thousands and thousands of thoughts all day. And it is not the individual thoughts that manifest. It is the energy that those thoughts create in you. It is what are you giving your emotional attention to, your emotional energy to. The thoughts that really get you going and get you in that like emotional state that kind of matches what the thought is trying to say. When you emotionally engage in a thought, That is what gains momentum and then creates a state, because as many of you know, it is your state of being that manifests. So if you are thinking a lot of insecure thoughts about how you're always rejected and nothing ever works out for you, that creates a state of being within you that is insecure, thinks that life isn't good, bad things happen to you, blah, 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 all that stuff. And it is that momentum of that state that then manifests quote unquote proof that, yep, nobody chooses you. Yep, people don't really like you, blah, 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 whatever it is. So it is not the thought itself that creates. It is what kind of credibility are you giving that thought? What kind of emotional energy are you feeding into that thought? How are you reacting to that thought? Because it's another thing you hear us say a lot in manifestation world is don't react. Don't react to the 3D, but obviously do not react internally to yourself either. Because a reaction, a true like manifesting reaction, is not the initial thought. It's not that initial thought that says, my body is horrible and it'll never be healthy. It's not that thought that manifests. It's the way that you perceive that thought randomly bubbling up from your subconscious and the way you interact with it in your emotions. Like when you feel that thought come up, do you go, oh no, this is not good, we cannot think that? Or do you take it seriously as if it's your intuition? That's another thing that so many of you guys do, and it's gonna maybe take you some time to get used to this, but you have to remember that your intuition is not trying to tell you that your manifestation isn't working through your negative thoughts. A lot of you will think, oh, I just had that thought that said my SP doesn't love me, and so that must be my intuition telling me that it's true that the manifestation isn't working because I just had that thought. You need to get over that. It's not your intuition that is telling you that. It is your negative emotions. It is your fear that feels so real to you. And I get it, that thought, because it's been very patterned into you. It already has a lot of momentum. That thought came up and it created a fear, and the fear feels so real that you misinterpret that as like reality. That like, oh, that's my intuition, that's reality, that yep, nobody loves me, or this person isn't working out for me, or my manifestation is failing because that thought just felt so real. All that real feeling, when a thought feels real, all that is it's a sign that your body already has momentum in believing a thought like that. And as a manifester now, you are practicing cutting off your emotions from reacting to that thought. And this is a practice, and I get it. This is the part where, especially if you are someone who is already like really maybe even OCD, anxiety, like spiraling in your thoughts all the time about particular things, depending on where you're at, it's going to take you different amounts of time to practice this and get used to it. But I get it if you already have a lot of momentum in terms of like, I'm already like really spiraling over these thoughts. How do I, cut off the emotional momentum? It is going to take practice, but it also really is as simple as exactly what I said earlier, that you need to practice noticing what you're thinking, like, oh, I'm gaining a lot of momentum. I thought one thought and then I thought another thought, and then I was like, oh no, this isn't working. Oh my gosh, my manifestation's failing. And catching yourself and being honest that, okay, I just let my emotions kind of feed into that, and that gave my brain the green light, like, oh, this is important. We need to start thinking more this way because her emotions are getting all wrapped up now. So this means that this must be real. This must be important. We got to keep focusing on this. We got to keep spiraling on this. And it is your job to be the observer, because that's who you are as the operant power. You are the observer that can see your own thoughts as they're happening. You are not your thoughts. You are this greater God energy that can see your thoughts, that can see your feelings, that is like the observer of your entire being, like as you're living. I think that's kind of a really cool thing about us humans, that it often feels like we are our thoughts. But when you step into the observer role, you realize, whoa, I'm not my thoughts. I'm not my feelings. I'm not my body. I can like watch myself going through it. I can see my thoughts and I can kind of choose and redirect them. Like that's what it means to be the operant power, to be the observer. And that's what I want you to step into. And it takes practice to step into that role, especially when you're so used to not being the observer. You need to like maybe even put an alarm on your phone to constantly remind you to check in. Like, are you being the operant power right now? Are you being the observer? Are you really being disciplined in catching your thoughts if they're going in a weird way? And if that happens, you simply do what I said before. You say, this is not interesting. This is not real. The only reason this feels real to me right now is because I've trained my brain to go this way so many different times, so many different ways. I have trained my brain to go this way. Because also it's important to say it in that way because that's true. We often think that our thoughts are just like being done to us as if it's like, well, this is just my natural reaction to reality. But it's like, no, you have a unique reaction to reality that has been formed based on all of the decisions you've made in your brain throughout your whole life. All of the rationales that you have made in your brain throughout your life have told your brain, these are things to pay attention to, these are things to not pay attention to. And you are the one that trained your brain to do that. And now it is your job to train it in a different way and cut off the emotional energy that is feeding into the old story. Because if you keep feeding emotional energy into those thoughts, your brain's like, yep, this is still real. Obviously, she's like really reacting to this. So this is super real still. So we have to stop that. So simply by acknowledging, okay, I see what's happening here, and acknowledging it in like a scientific way. I'm the kind of coach I like to remind you guys to kind of approach manifesting as a scientist, like to be curious about it, to be just experimental about it. Don't be so emotional and hard on yourself and like coming at it from this place of like shame and perfectionism. Instead, just be curious, have fun with it, honestly, but be more of an objective scientist and be like, okay, I see why this is happening. I've really taken these thoughts seriously for way too long. That's why my brain so easily goes here. But this is not a thing. This thing that I just thought, this thing about me being rejected, that's just the example I'm using today, but you could put in whatever story it is for you that comes up. But this story about me being rejected, it's not a thing. My brain's only going here because I have actually trained it to think that this is an important thing to be thinking about. It's not. It's not even real. As the operant power now, I do not allow myself, no matter how I'm feeling, to ever think that I'm actually being rejected, because as the operant power, I have control over what I take seriously in my mind in terms of like, who am I identifying as? Am I identifying as someone who is rejected, or do I identify as someone who is always so loved, always so supported, always so gets what they want, even when I feel things? Because this is also the thing. People think that, oh no, I've gained momentum in the negative thinking, and now I feel really bad. How do I fix my feelings? Well, also, no, you're not going to fix your feelings, especially if you have gained a lot of momentum in a negative direction. You can have whatever feeling energy got drummed up by those thoughts. You can have that feeling and just let it be. Like, I so want you guys to stop trying to fix your thoughts and fix your feelings, because that's, again, coming from this really damaging belief you took on that you must perfect your feelings, you must feel really good all the time, and you must perfect your thinking and your feeling. And that is not how it works. It's like, ironically, your thinking and feeling does naturally get a lot better, but it only gets better when you are being so gentle on yourself and so accepting of yourself, so non-resistant to yourself. If you're ever fighting parts of you, if you are ever trying to fix parts of you because you think those parts of you aren't acceptable, and therefore if that part of you that feels rejected, it can't exist anymore because your SP will never choose you if you still have that part of you, that is not going to work. So instead, you acknowledge, okay, now I feel sad. Okay, now I feel anxious. Now I feel worried. I get it. It's because I just went on this like thought train, and the thought inspired a bunch of feelings in me because I'm so used to going that direction. But even in this current feeling state, I can remember who I am. I can know that I am unconditionally chosen. I can know that things are working out for me regardless of how I feel right now. And this is so important because it takes away all the power that the old story has over you. Because again, if you're trying to desperately push away the old story because you're so afraid of it, what you're really saying is, this old story controls me. This whole old story has so much power over me. Even just a little hint of a thought of the old story can completely throw me off my hinges. Like, that's how much power the old story has over me. So instead, you're taking back your power and saying, you know what, even if the old story comes up and I think about it a lot, even if it comes up and I feel really crappy because I've been thinking about it, I don't care. I can sit in the discomfort of that and still know that I'm gonna be okay, that we're gonna get through this and still manifest exactly what we're intending to manifest. So this is so big, you guys. I feel like so many of you, especially again, like me, when you first get into manifesting, you're learning to shame yourselves even more, like shaming yourself for having any sort of bad thought or shaming yourself for having any negative feeling that comes with the thought. And again, I'm telling you, you're not going to stop those thoughts. Those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts, those old story thoughts, they will naturally go away the more that you just don't give them your emotional attention, the more that you can kind of see them come up and just be like, yep, there's that weird thought. That's not a thing. Just keep going with whatever I was thinking about before. Let's go back to that. Choose a different reaction to your intrusive thoughts, your negative thoughts, your crazy thoughts, because that is what is causing your state of being to not feel good. It's your reaction to those thoughts, that reaction of powerlessness, of feeling like you can't handle the thoughts or that you're gonna fail, you're gonna ruin everything if you have those thoughts. Like that kind of reaction is what's causing you to stay stuck and causing you to probably not manifest very well. So this is really important, guys. If you need any more help on this particular subject to go into kind of your specific stuff, you can always book a call with me and we can go personally into your stuff. Or, of course, ask your questions in the comments below if you have more questions about this topic. It does take practice too. That's also what I'll say. This, because you've had so much momentum in thinking, especially again, those like really long-standing self-concept, deep things that are important to you. You've thought that way for a long time, those negative things, and they're not gonna just stop coming up like overnight. Like it's gonna take practice to see them come up, and they're gonna come up again and again because your brain's like, well, you trained me on this, so don't you want to keep looking at this? It's just gonna keep happening, and it's your only job is to be like, I get it, but it's not a thing anymore, and to be so non-reactive to the thought. So anyway, I know this was helpful to you guys. Let me know your questions, and I will see you guys in my next video. All right, bye.